What is going on, everybody? It's Walter Bransoma here, coming at you with some more of the Meta Season 1, Episode 4. Today we got a pretty big discussion on our hands, so I say we just go ahead and get right into it. Welcome to everyone in the chat so far, and thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to chat along with us, ask us any questions you want, but you guys see the two people on screen with us. Unfortunately, Cody Cameron was unable to make it tonight, so we're going to work with these three. You guys already know DJ by now, so if Mr. Sai would like to give himself an introduction, he's good to go.
Well, it's not a whole lot to me. Most of y'all are actually probably pretty familiar with me. I'm over at Georgia Southern with the Eagle Smash, and I've helped host a bunch of your tournaments to get you guys started, honestly. Besides that, if you really want to know anything about me, you can definitely just hit me up either on Twitter at TZ_Sai or on Facebook if you can find me.
Good stuff. All right, and that being said, I guess we'll just get right into it. Today is a big day in terms of discussions for what we'll be going over. For the most part, you see the topics list, but our big point of discussion is going to be the aftermath of Olympus, plus just a general sort of encompassing discussion on what TOs can do in order to make everything better, you know? Reading the chat right now, excuse the giant green screen in the background if that's any jarring for any of you guys. Planning on streaming after this, actually, so stay tuned if you guys want to watch this. But for now, I just left it up, so deal with it. And we'll get started. We're just going to get right into it with some PSAs. First things first, we got Bad Moon Rising coming up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Tomorrow and Sunday, I think.
Yep.
Sai, I think your audio is echoing a little bit, actually. If you want.
I have my stuff muted, so I don't know why that makes sense.
Oh, awkward. Okay, it seems like it's better now. So yeah, tomorrow and Sunday, Bad Moon Rising. I contacted Dylan McGrath. I wanted to try to see if he could come in for like a guest call, but I never really got around to messaging him for that sort of thing. But him and then I think Lucas Portnoy, a few other people from North Carolina Smash, really cool community, and a lot of good stuff coming from that area. That's going to be coming up tomorrow and Sunday. Huge regional for North Carolina. It's going to be their big tournament to really put them on the map in terms of just having that scene there and making themselves known in terms of a competitive area there. Big names including, I think we got PPMD committing to doubles as far as I know. Hungrybox showing up, Wizrobe, Plup, Red, Money Mike, Colball. There's a lot of people. I believe actually Hungrybox posted in there and said like half of Florida's PR is going to
Drug Fox, Loser. They're going to have a good bunch of the really good Southern Foxes out there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, coming up next we got Extinction 4 also happening tomorrow, so for those of you who aren't going to make it out to Bad Moon Rising, take a trip over to Greenville, South Carolina. It's about an hour from the USC campus if you're nearby here. One day, local. More so, I guess, local / regional, I want to say, because Extinctions have been known to have attendance from Georgia and some other areas as well, so pretty cool tournament. Featuring Smash 4 and Melee, I think. And then a plethora of other fighting games, which I'm not really too familiar with. So for now, I'll just say Extinction 4, Saturday, March 14th, tomorrow in Greenville. Show up if you're not going to be over at Bad Moon Rising. And then finally, in terms of just big tournaments coming up on the horizon, we got Mid-State Massacre 5 coming in Charlotte, North Carolina. Again, North Carolina really showing up with a lot of these tournaments. Lots of good stuff coming on. That's going to be happening on April 4th. And I'm sure there's already a good number of people committed to going to that event. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for the tournaments coming up within the regions. Again, if you want to check out anything that's going within these respective, I guess, we have South Carolina, Georgia with Sai representing that area, and then North Carolina with all these tournaments going on. Go ahead and check out their respective Facebook pages. I can link all of those to you guys as we post it onto YouTube. But we'll move on with some other announcements, tournaments pushing aside right now. So Olympus recap, because this entire episode is just going to be pretty much about Olympus and everything Olympus related. Just going to go through the results. I'll link the challenge to everyone on YouTube again. Just be sure to look out for those links. But Melee singles, and good stuff to everyone who attended, first off, because aside from what we're going to be discussing today, I thought the tournament was really cool. It was an awesome experience to be able to, for me to personally stream it, and for everyone else to just be in attendance and have so many areas in attendance there. But just going to go through the top 3 for anyone who's interested. We had Melee singles. Really good attendance. Actually, all 3 of the regions in question were in the top 3. So we had first place from North Carolina with Twitch, second place from Bakafamoe, and third place with ESAM. So North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina from their respective places. Good stuff to those guys. Melee doubles, we had Twitch and Drugged Fox taking first place. Aside from the big guns thing, we're going to say that's a good game. Nika Boy and Baka taking second. And then RJ and Ziff showing up. Really good players also taking third in that. And then Wii U singles had ESAM at first, Fatality second, and Player One at third place. So, yeah. That's pretty much... I hate you guys. Yeah, a lot of Georgia in terms of what Sai wanted to say. A lot of Georgia. And a bunch of talent over there, too. So, really excited. I was super glad to be able to meet a bunch of the Georgia players there, too. They were really awesome guys. But, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for our our news and PSAs section. We recapped Olympus to the best extent we could with our top 3. And now we're going to get into the meat of it. And it's our discussion on Olympus. So I'm going to start off by reading a post that I found in Georgia Melee. This was a really relevant post. It was by a guy named Griffin Miller, aka Fatality, if you guys know him. I'm sure you do if you're in the area because he's a fantastic player. I've talked about him a lot in these past episodes as well. But I'm going to read through this post in its entirety. And then I suppose from there we can at least just start our discussion in terms of what's going to be going on. So Griffin posted in Georgia Melee on Facebook, SC has certainly run more than its fair share of poorly run tournaments in the past, but Olympus was by far the worst of these I've ever attended. As someone who wasn't part of the staff, I can only speculate on why everything happened as it did. But regardless of what the staff was thinking, many things happened that are just completely unacceptable. I think Melee doubles was about an hour late to start. Melee singles was several hours late to start. PM singles was about 7 hours late and eventually got canceled due to the fact that it was 1 a.m. and pools hadn't even finished yet. PM doubles got canceled at the end for being way too late, and even Smash 4 started about an hour late and was having bottlenecking issues. Loco won his Smash 4 pool but didn't start in winner's bracket for the final Smash 4 bracket for some incomprehensible reason. Angelo signed up for Melee singles, which was supposed to start at 12:30, but he didn't even play his first match until 7.5 hours later. Every time I looked over the brackets and pools for any of the games, there were often free setups that could be used for tournament matches just sitting there idly, when there were definitely matches that could have been happening there then instead. PM and Smash 4 were each assigned rooms that couldn't even support a 20-person tournament, let around 80 for Smash 4 and 100 plus for PM. Even though Melee was about half of the overall event, it had about 85% of all the venue space, and even the Melee room was too small, so you can easily imagine how the space for PM and Smash 4 was a living nightmare. The layout for all the rooms was really bad and made the whole event a gigantic, uncomfortable cluster. The whole venue was just way too small for the amount of people that you knew were coming. There were a lot of people who drove out from hours away just for PM, not even to be able to do the event because of the fact that the staff was enormously wasting everyone's time with this whole event and canceled it. If they had run it through, people would have been there till 6 in the morning the next day. Unbelievable. Do you know what's really sad? Nobody has come out and said anything about this mess yet. I think much of the Smash community is so used to poorly run tournaments that we are generally accepting of terrible quality events, and this has gradually led to TOs being able to get away with running completely awful events over and over again. It's time for TOs to grow the backbone needed to ensure that when you run an event, it's actually going to respect its players' time and money and not waste it. There should be way more tournaments that place a cap on their total attendance and stick to it to make sure that the tools you have for running the event don't get swamped by too many people. If your venue can only support 100 players, then don't let more than 100 players attend. It's much better to run a 100-person event that's well run and awesome for everyone than a 200-person event that's terribly run and sucks for everyone. That was a mouthful. I just wanted to read that in case people weren't aware of this post, but I think Griffin speaks a lot of truths in this post, and I really just wanted to hear what you guys had to say about that post in particular, and then we can move on to what exactly happened in Olympus and what we can really do to ameliorate the situation.
Great.
Honestly, I want to hear what Sai has to say about this.
Well, starting off, it is obvious that a lot of issues occurred there. I enjoyed Olympus. I want to go ahead and say that. I did enjoy it, but I also played better in Melee than I have in quite some time when I went to that event. So I wasn't particularly upset. And I am pretty familiar with things just like getting screwed over in the end, which I shouldn't be content with that. I'm a TO myself here. I don't like when my events are run inefficiently, and I try to make my events as efficient as possible. Do you want to look straight at the mishaps that we acknowledged? Like, give me topics and I'll expand on them.
Yeah, I think I guess I'll just recap people who weren't in attendance at Olympus or anyone who kind of needs a refresher. Again, keep in mind, from pretty much all our perspectives here talking about it, Olympus, I think, was a fine tournament. And I've spoken to many people on the Georgia PR, such as Drugged Fox and Flaming Roy and who else? Nika Boy, maybe. I think it was just Flaming Roy, actually. But a few people on Georgia's PR, a few people from South Carolina, and the ever-famous Locke Ramsey. And a lot of them had nothing but good things to say about Olympus. I think in terms of how a tournament went for a one-day event, it ran as good as it's going to get. But then again, there was also those key incidents which really left a bad taste in people's mouths. So we're going to go into the just exactly what happened to fill you guys in, and then we can kind of discuss from there exactly why it went wrong and then what we can do to fix it in the future. So the big first one that I wrote down on this topic list that we have here was, I call it the Project M split incident. This was a big part of Fatality's post, as he's a pretty avid PM player amongst all the other games. But the main issue with this was at the end of Olympus, we apparently had a venue time limit until 1 a.m. And that's when everyone had to pack their shit and leave for the most part. So to save time, the Olympus staff decided, hey, we're going to split top 32. The prize pool will be split between those of the people who made it into the top 32 bracket. In addition, the Project M doubles bracket just didn't even finish, so they ended up splitting that as well. With that in mind, because of the fact that Project M wasn't completed to pretty much any extent, Melee singles and doubles were the only items that me, as the streamer, were able to broadcast to everyone watching the tournament, which is fine if you're into Melee and to anything else, but the fact that it was supposed to be a 6 event tournament, and I was only able to cover two parts of that, means I only covered really 33% of the whole event. Do you guys have any other issues that you want to point out? Those were two really big ones, but if you guys have anything else.
Not specifically on the Project M split at this point, because I see that we have pools further down the line, and that's where most of the meat of my input will come from.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so what were you gonna say?
Just from issues that I went back over, like, if anyone remembers, from like immediately after Olympus, someone created a post in the SC Melee page about not shit talking, but basically it was the same thing that Fatality posted in Georgia Melee, where he's just trying to call up a discussion about people talking about what went wrong and what happened. And aside from everything running late, which is an issue, the venue size, I believe, was also an issue. I think someone said they surpassed the fire hazard by about 100 people.
Okay.
From
that's a fair amount, I think.
But I think you're right in saying that the main issue here is that just the time. That event just ran way too later than what they were supposed to. Like, they even started late, I believe.
Yeah. From my perspective, and again, I was streaming the event, and we'll talk more about exactly what went wrong and pinpoint this situation. But from my perspective, since I was pretty much there to just commentate and stream, and As far as I know, I think Melee doubles was scheduled to start at 11, if I'm not mistaken. 11 or 12, one of those times. And I know maybe like, I think it was 11:30, and then 11:30 rolled around, and I wasn't 100% set because I was working on the green screen and everything like that. So I said, I went to the TOs and I said, hey, are you starting the bracket now? Because I'm not 100% set with the stream. We haven't even started up the broadcast yet or anything like that. So that's on me. But they said there's so many people just waiting, like lined up out the door, that we're not even going to be able to get the bracket set up, or the actual bracket set up on Challenge for another half hour at the least. So that was where a big issue came into play in terms of, I guess, timing, like you want to talk about, is the fact that so many people either pre-registered and weren't there early enough, or so many people just didn't register and were planning on doing it on the day of the tournament, that there was a line out the door, and you had so many of those people just waiting to get ready and to start their tournament, play their, and of course all these players will want to play friendlies before they start their matches and warm up, I guess, before the tournament starts, and just get mentally prepared and be put in that zone so that they can be ready for the tournament. So of course that's not on the players at all, really, because you can't really expect much else from a player. Like I would want to go to a tournament before the tournament starts and get my friendlies in, and then be prepared to play my bracket sets. So there's probably ways in which that can be ameliorated, and I'm sure there's definitely ways in which that can be ameliorated, which we're going to be discussing. But that was a big problem with just the initial timing of the tournament. A couple other mishaps I just want to point out. And again, I mean, I just want to make it clear, this isn't like a, hey, let's shit on Olympus, because I think in terms of everything that went down with Olympus, it was a fine tournament. Everything went really well. And I mean, again, we all had fun going to Olympus. But another big mishap was that there was I don't know if I'm mistaken on this, but I think there was a major decision in pools to change from a top 3 get out of pools to top 2. And that happened during bracket, I'm pretty certain. So that's a really huge issue. In terms of, if you're doing that just to save for time, that's a very big problem. And Sai, you said you had a lot to talk about with the pools as well, so I'd like for you to expound on that if you could.
Oh boy. All right.
Oh, full time.
So part 1, we've got the the handwritten pools. Honestly, not a large problem on their own. Mm-hmm. It was the way they were utilized that wasn't efficient. So what happened a lot during the event was we were, for some reason, calling out matches when that should never honestly be necessary if you are giving out pools and you have adequate number of staff to run pools.
Right.
Excuse me. So, kind of under the weather lately. Anyway, when I was trying to run a pool, or I was trying to run a second pool actually, I have only 10 people to worry about. This is more of an example, but it did happen at Olympus.
Right.
I only have 10 people to work with when running pools, so that means that at maximum, I only have to use 5 setups. Mm-hmm. Now, as soon as the first round is over, which by the way only takes up 2 TVs at a given time, because you have 4 buys, or you have whatever number of buys, and then you have 2 people that have, or 2 sets that have to be done first.
Right.
That means that I start with 2 setups, and I only need up to 5 in order to continue my pool. So I can run 4 sets, meaning I can run 2 pools at once. Following that particular round, then I have 4 sets for both pools, which means I have 8, and I'm still limited at 5 TVs or setups. But that only means that 3 people aren't playing, or 3 sets aren't playing. Mm-hmm. I should have been given a second pool as soon as I asked for it, but for whatever reason, it was decided that they'd prefer to hold off and call pools all together at once, or like in small sets, instead of what should have happened, which was, all right, everybody, we're going to call all of the pools for a wave, mm-hmm. instead of like, we're going to call the next pool.
Yeah.
So what should have happened was everyone should have known in advance what pool they were in. Like pool 16 should have been like, oh, I'm in pool 16, instead of like, I don't know what pool I'm in. I'm going to go bother the guys at the desk for the 17th time.
Yeah.
Because that kept happening, and I was like, They were like, "Hey, is Melee single start?" And I was like, "No, we'll let you know when it does."
Yeah.
So that just kept happening. And another thing with the pools and the inefficiency there is that there wasn't really well, at least as far as I know. I think I discussed it a little bit with the other South Carolina / Olympus staff that were available, and they said there was actually a document in place that said, "Hey, this is how we're going to run it." But I never saw the document, even though I did ask to help early on.
Yeah.
But it just like, I don't know. They should have been a place where it was like, all right, you're going to run this pool, or we're going to find somebody to run this pool, and as soon as this set is done, then we know that you can run another pool. Because right after round 1, you're down to like 3 setups that you have to use during a pool, which means that you're not using half of your setups, which is where a lot of those friendly / just unused setups came from.
Right.
They could have started pool 16 by the time we finished pool 8, but it didn't happen for hours.
Gotcha. And would you be able to confirm if it was if they did change it from a top 3 get out of pools to a top 2?
I believe that was the case.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know when it happened. I think it might have been announced before the tournament began, but people were probably already en route to the event.
This is just a little off topic, but in reference to the Olympus staff, how many were actually there before the event, like, were confirmed to be like staffing for the tournament? Do you all know? Because I know there were a lot of people. Apparently, there were a good number of people that just stepped up that were non TOs that helped, like Stuart.
Yeah,
apparently.
I know Stuart, and I think Sai, you were already on the list of people to help out with pools and stuff.
I was on the list, but I wasn't really staff.
Gotcha.
I always play supports.
From what I'm aware, and I'm gonna just read the chat real quick. This was a side note, but Ballsbeard in the chat says clearly the whole event was inherently flawed because of the scope of the tournament. He's correct about that, so we'll get to that comment in a little bit. But I just wanted to make sure that he knew we were talking. But in terms of who was actually staffed, I guess, before, I think it was somewhere in the vicinity of 10 people, maybe far less than that. I'm not 100% certain. I know for a fact, I mean, I was listed as staff because I was streaming and commentating. We had Andrew listed as staff because he was supposed to be helping with the stream and getting pictures and just like footage of everything. Then, of course, you have Matt Sharp and Evan Tripp as the tournament organizers, and then Evan doing his thing with 4x3 Productions to get his video quality stuff down. A few other people were just designated as floaters, and then people designated to be pool organizers. So it was somewhere in the vicinity of maybe like 8 to 10, but I don't know if that's entirely accurate. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it just seems like if you're having it's a common saying that if you add more people to a project that's already behind, it's only going to take longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can quickly answer. Was it Ballsbeard? Or it's not really an answer, but that is indeed true. And we've already determined that we need to use pre-registration a lot more directly and force people into death pools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And another comment on how the event was inherently flawed simply because of the scope of the tournament. I mean, the venue they had picked out, from what I've heard, was not well. Obviously, if we're exceeding the fire hazard by about 100 people with the 200 man turnout, what was written on the Olympus event page was evidently not exactly entirely true, but. I follow Juggle Guy, Robin Harn.
Yeah.
Relayed on me on Twitter. I don't know if you all do, but he'll tend to just turn out little TOing tidbits every now and again.
Right.
And he was saying that a good rule of thumb, just for that, it's either I think it was 15 square feet per attendee.
Okay.
Is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd agree with that side, but just going off of that from
I'm honestly not super familiar with venues in space at this point. I have been spooling up for a tournament in the summer. And as that stands, once I get confirmation on the building availability and the date, I'll actually go ahead and begin to announce that.
Gotcha.
But as it stands at the room that I'm already looking at, it has a fire maximum occupancy of 115.
Right.
So for my convenience, I would max out at 100 people.
Gotcha. Yeah, and
that makes other calculations a lot easier to do too. Like I can, based on averages, obviously not directly.
Yeah.
I can basically perfectly schedule my tournament based on that.
Mm-hmm. And that's almost proper TOing. I think at that point, it's good that I'm glad that we have you on the call too, because you're pretty much just the local, I guess, professional at being a TO. You're probably the most experienced out of all three of us. And probably out of a lot of people in our respective regions at organizing a tournament. So again, I'm glad to have you on this right now. But I think an overarching concept, at least with respect to what Ballsbeard said in the chat, for like a what went wrong, the venue was too big. How can we fix it? A huge thing in terms of just like, okay, the venue was too big. We recognize that that's a problem, but
too small.
That's what I meant, too small. But you look at the Olympus event page, and this event was being built up for months on end.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have, of course, it's a Facebook event. So through Facebook, you're going to get a rough estimation. It's not going to give you exact numbers, and that's what, of course, pre-registration is for. And when the tournament gets that big, you want to move that you want to make a shift from that pre-registration into a register online and make your payments now, because we'll close registration by this date, so we have our set numbers by this date, we can make our brackets by this time, and then by the time our tournament rolls around, we'll have all our brackets set up, and we won't need to waste 30 to 45 minutes setting up brackets because we're waiting for people who are lined up out the door. In addition, I think another big thing is when you have over 100 or 200 people saying, yes, I will be in attendance at this Facebook event, and the venue you have is planning on exceeding the fire hazard by over 100 people already, that should be a red flag in terms of, hey, maybe this venue is too small and we need to explore other options, because we have set this event up and we've built it up for months on end, and we still have a month or so before our event actually happens. So we can use this time to set up a registration, make sure all this stuff is actually prepared so we can get actual numbers. But in the meantime, let's play it on the safe side and try to find a backup venue in case it blows up and becomes way too big.
Well, in reference to your, let's get move the pre-registration into the register online, pay now. I believe someone made that comment in the SC Melee page thread that I was reading. Mm-hmm. Yep, here I get to the part where Andrew starts talking about it. But I think someone was saying that, like, but what about like the younger people that don't necessarily have a way to pay online? Mm-hmm. And the thing that's like not having people pay online and just doing the pre-register is fine for like a local, I think.
Yeah.
But once you get to like once you move up the step to like a regional, then it becomes a bit more of an issue where you're going to be on a time constraint.
Right. Yeah, and that's the big thing with a tournament like this is it's been expected to be the biggest tournament South Carolina, or I guess our respective areas, have seen ever. Like ever. There's never I think this has exceeded tournaments like Smash Carolina. It's almost doubled their numbers.
Yeah, I think it has.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty much doubled their numbers at this point, just in terms of people who were expected to come. It wasn't even people who were actually in attendance. So when you have a tournament that big, you have to understand, hey, and the way I see it, you have one of two options. It's either if you wanna commit to this being a one-day event, you look for a bit bigger venue because you've spent all this time building up your market and trying to get everyone interested in what you're putting out there. You commit to the one-day event, look for a bigger venue, and try to maintain your tournament timeline. I guess this is a like option A.5 sort of deal, but in respect to what Fatality said in his post, you keep it to a one-day event, but you also cut back on either the number of attendees and have a cap there, or you cut back on the number of events that are being displayed for that tournament. And then your option B would just be extend the timeline to account for your number of participants, either making it into a 2 or 3 day pseudo national or regional in that respect, and then divide your venue space according to what game you're going to be organizing in its respective area.
Right.
So, I mean, it's never really a bad thing to have backup plans. And I think a really big issue in terms of what happened with this event was that there wasn't a backup plan to account for all of these attendees coming to this tournament. And the fact of the matter is, again, like Ballsbeard said, it was such a small venue for the grand scheme of people that were going to be attending. Is the venue was too small and it was too divided in order to run the tournament efficiently and to run the tournament efficiently in one day.
Yeah,
so
no,
those are your two parameters there.
Yeah, no, I would see it like I did not go to Olympus because I almost never go to tournaments anyway. Like, you'll see me show up at Ready to Play at their Sunday Smash Offs every now and again. But past that, I was sitting here watching the stream, and like I'm seeing Stort post on Facebook, "We homebrew," and he's got this picture of everyone out in the hallway. And then
outside too,
and then
right?
And then like 10 minutes later, he's like, "You thought I was lying?" And there's just like everyone, like there are people playing on coolers outside.
Yeah, thank you, Kaka3456. Is that? Yeah, for the follow. I appreciate that, man. But continue.
But yeah, no, and I'm just sitting here like, well, that's a bit of a worrying notion there that we're outside of the venue playing Smash Brothers.
Right, yeah. And I think people treat, again, this is a total, I guess we're moving off topic a little bit, but people treat playing outside for like Smash and stuff, that's like a commodity. That's like, oh wow, we got to play outside, that's super cool. It's not like oh shit, like this isn't going well and we don't have enough space. Like, let's like kick these people outside and make them play out here. And it's like you're playing tournament matches outside. Like, I'm not all for, okay, let's like white noise the room, make like padded walls everywhere, like make everyone on an even playing ground in terms of where you're playing, but you're gonna put your tournament attendees outside and then expect them to A, have a good time with that, and then B, perform the same. I don't know about that.
It's like a bunch of Russian refugees trying to find the last power sources. That was pretty rough. And overall, like, I think something that needs to be kept in mind here is that Olympus is like a premier tournament. It's not an ongoing series yet.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as experience goes, like, I don't know how experienced Matt is with running larger tournaments, and I imagine after this, it's pretty clear he's not very familiar with it. I like to think what happened here was that he wanted to host a tournament.
Yeah.
Expecting basically just South Carolina to show up. You know, we're working with 90 entrants or so, and then he gets
200.
2.5
It was
more
180,
than that.
I think, for Melee or something
Yeah.
like that. It was. I mean, this tournament was big enough that it was posted on Melee at Onme's like weekly tournament page.
Mm-hmm.
There's things coming up, and we were on there. That's insane.
And we had Red Bull sponsoring it.
So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I feel like on one hand, this tournament shouldn't necessarily have. Well, okay, it should have the criticism it has, but it shouldn't be considered too severely. You know
right,
what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the point I wanted to get across is I don't think in terms of us as the panel, and then in terms of people who attended the tournament, I don't really think many people were disappointed. Unless you're one of those people who strictly came out for PM, then I can understand why you'd be at least a little bit peeved about it.
Oh yeah, 70% of South Carolina.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Shout
there
outs
were
to Salty Kevin.
there's a few issues, and the reason this episode exists right now, and the reason we're talking about this is so that there can be improvement and people can show improvement in the future, because I know for a fact Olympus 2016, or at least Olympus in terms of a series, is trying to take off, and it's trying to be a bigger tournament area for South Carolina, and I guess for the areas of Georgia and North Carolina as well. And in order for that to happen, the issues need to not only be aired out, they need to be heard by the people who organize the event, and they need to be acted upon in order to make sure that the next tournament will run without as many flaws as the previous one.
Maybe they should just change the name of the tournament to Big Guns Boys.
Honestly, like I've been talking to Matt off and on too. They know better now. It's going to be a multiple day
course.
event. They know to have the space. Like that problem has essentially been not solved, obviously, since we haven't had the second iteration yet, but it's been
Right.
addressed. But as far as some of the other TO things that can be looked at, those can still be discussed because I personally have not seen that much on South Carolina Melee page, and I haven't
Right.
seen that in discussions with Matt or, well, I guess Evan's not really. He's more of a PR guy, but
Yeah.
mostly Matt.
Okay.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to using the next tournament organizer staff group. There needs to be a defined, well, like our document is being built up with me and Andre. We're building up something that they can look at, copy it for a specific event, and streamline it for Olympus 2, whatever that might be.
Right.
Excuse me. So, as far as running tournaments, there's a lot of desire to micromanage, and this
Right.
is segueing into a different topic at this point. There's a desire to micromanage how the events are working, and you don't want to be doing that with a large event. They need to be able to self-automate. If you're having a larger tournament where you're expecting more experience to appear,
Right.
those players not necessarily be accountable for running the pools, but they're just as eager to run those tournament events as we are, as the organizers. So we can put some faith into them as interested and dedicated players to run that event and make things happen on their own. That can be done with the pools to an extent. Obviously, you don't want people to be doing their whole collusion and just putting in false information because somebody's not paying attention.
Right.
So you want to have either a well-known, respectable, higher-level player or a staff member available for each pool. I saw the part that said that we should use electronic means to keep track of those things. And while that would be great, those things do cost money, and if you don't have the startup for that, which I'm looking at it from my own perspective, I don't know if the Olympus staff is developing a pool for that. But if they are, then that's great, but you still need somebody to run it and keep
Right.
track and make sure it's all good.
I think in terms of staffing, and again, I mean, I wrote this in our little summary here, but at the most premier level, you're gonna want to have something that's not handwritten, because I think at the end of the day, if you have something that's handwritten, sure, it can work, but it might be a bit slower than doing something that's either through, I don't know, an iPad or a laptop or something like that. And that again doesn't necessarily have to come from the company or the organization that's sponsoring this event. Because I can just as easily come in, be on staff for a tournament, and have my laptop with me, and then all I have to do is just pull it up on my laptop, and we're good to go. And most people have laptops or iPads or a tablet that they can use to make that run more smoothly. But when you get to that upper echelon of tournament organizing, maybe you want to streamline it a bit. You want to have 15 iPads going around, and each of them handed out to each staff member to organize your pools and whatnot. For what's going on with the pools itself, I just think it needs to just be the whole process of going through pools needs to be tightened up, like you said. It's like you have 6 setups when you start with your pool, and by the time you get maybe not even halfway through your bracket, you've already eliminated the use of 50% of them. By that point, you should be starting to at least stagger your pools or stagger your brackets. So ideally, at the point where one bracket is ending, or you're getting into top 32 or top 16 coverage that can go on stream of, say, melee singles, by the time that bracket wraps up, you're finishing up pools for the next event already, so that it can maintain things at least on the stream as well. Make sure that there's not really too many extended breaks going on with that, and that's difficult to do, I think. Let me see. I think the electronic thing for pools is definitely a really important thing. At least in my opinion, just because that lets everyone else who's on staff like see the progress that's going on with everyone else's pool without having to walk over and say, "Oh, hey, how's your pool going?" Or, "Oh, let me look at what you wrote down on this sheet of paper." And that, all in all, that just makes things more efficient with possibly less communication between staff. Yeah. And that could also promote a little bit more staff synergy, hopefully.
It would definitely help. By no means was I saying we shouldn't have it at all.
Yeah.
But just, finance restricted. That's the only point I was going to make on that.
Yeah, and that's always going to be an issue, I think. in terms of finances as well, this didn't particularly bother me because I wanted to stream the event, but I know for people who had stepped up during that event to TO and to organize pools and stuff, there was no, I guess, compensation, if you will, for organizing or stepping up to organizing it. It was all done on a voluntary purpose, which I guess it's fine, but at the same time, if you're going to be running a staff and you want this staff to sacrifice at least their tournament that they plan on participating in, or you want them to be able to work with you for the entire day, I think there needs to be some sort of at least maybe monetary compensation, or you don't get to pay for this, or we will do X, Y, and Z for you. There has to be some sort of trade-off in that respect, especially if you're going to be in like an esports organization, you know?
Mm-hmm. He's itching to say it.
I don't know. Well, it's just like, that's not entirely true. Stort got the PM trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Small victories. So.
But I see what you're saying, and that's actually like, I feel like while that's a big thing, but I feel like most tournaments, even Apex, is run on the backs of volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what a volunteer is. They're not there for compensation. They're not, but to be fair, I feel like without the volunteers, it could have gone any which way anyway.
Yeah.
So honestly, if anyone deserves a big shout out, it would definitely be the staff helping to make sure everyone, like Sai and Store, trying to make sure everything was getting back on track.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say like, oh, everyone who's like, I'll help out for 5 minutes and run a pool for a second until I trade it off to someone, like, okay, pay me $50 now for like doing this for the day. Like, I think people who are designated to be staff prior to the event actually happening, like I said, those 8 to 10 people that were already on that list of people who were here or were going to Olympus to help out the bracket, should at least be treated as if they're an employee at that point. By the same token, I think it makes things fairly difficult when the only real correspondence we got as a group together was to have an email with like a Google Doc, and it just had our designated jobs listed down on that Google Doc. Personally, I think it's much more efficient, and in terms of making your staff run more smoothly together, have everyone get to know each other. You meet the night before, you meet a couple nights before, and you go over what you need to do in order to make this tournament run well, and run well within the time constraints you have that weren't even made available to us as a staff. Half of us didn't even know that the venue was going to be closing at a certain time, which can be a really big problem, because if the whole staff doesn't know that the tournament's going to end at 1 a.m., then we're going to keep running things late and just say, okay, we're behind, but that's okay. Like, we're going to just keep going with this, and we just got to do what we can to make sure it finishes.
Yeah, I have to ask, Sai, when were you made aware that the venue was closing at 1?
Somewhere in the middle of Project M. I was just like, okay.
So almost when the venue was closing then?
Probably. It was, well, no, it was a good while still. It was probably 11 or so.
I think I knew at around like winner semis of Melee singles. It was like there was like 4 sets left in the entire bracket.
Actually, I'm not sure I remember this, but can you guys, since you all were there and I was just watching the Titanic capsize on stream, but I was like, what? But can you like give me the timeline for when events were actually like being started? Because I know this is something I actually wanted to get into discussion on, because how actual like events went down in this tournament, and again, I was just sitting in the commentator booth the whole time, but I was getting correspondence from people who were TOing, putting matches on stream for me. Pretty much they ran through Melee doubles again, like Fatality said in his post. That went about like 2 or 3 hours late, maybe. Or however many hours late it was, I don't know. Let me just pull this up for just for posterity's sake. The tentative schedule for Olympus from the page. This is incredibly unrealistic given tournament standard time that we're all used to here in South Carolina. The doors open at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Melee doubles starts at 11:30. Singles an hour later. Doubles 2:30. Singles an hour later for PM. And then Smash 4 Wii U singles would be at 5:30. Now, anyone who's ever been to a tournament in South Carolina knows that's probably not going to be the case.
You add at least 4 to 5 hours to those times.
Definitely. And if I remember correctly, I came back to Melee doubles ending around 5 or so.
Okay, yeah. So as far as I was aware, I think we started at like maybe 12:30 or 12.
You started at 12:30 with Melee doubles.
Yeah, so 4.5 hour bracket there. Then we moved on to Melee singles. We started pools when Melee doubles ended. Again, like I previously stated, perhaps staggering your times there, since you're going to have so many available TVs and everything like that are being used for friendlies. Perhaps staggering your times there would have made that run a bit more efficiently, but that's beside the point right now. You had Melee singles running after Melee doubles as scheduled, but several hours in advance. And at that point, the decision was made to run all 3 singles pools simultaneously. Which again, like Fatality said, when you have 85% of the venue occupied as Melee, that becomes difficult. Because you're splitting your resources in terms of the people who brought setups. 2, you're splitting your staff in terms of people who are running pools, because now you have the tournament organizers pulling random people who play in those respective games. Hey, can you organize this pool for me? Hey, can you organize this pool for me? But for Smash 4, hey, can you organize this pool for me? It's in PM as soon as we get 15 PM setups ready. So that, again, I mean, it worked because it worked over time because it allowed everyone to kind of get all 3 games rolling at the same time. But by the same token, it was kind of like a you're late to the draw sort of deal, because if you were going to be doing this and making this staggered decision, like I said, it would be probably a good idea. That probably should have been made several hours in advance, or even before the tournament actually started. So that was the big problem with just, I think, scheduling in general. I think running all 3 of singles events at the same time was a good idea, but it was just implemented very late into the game. And that really kind of just caused everything to landslide just out of control. And really, I mean, PM didn't finish at all.
No, it's kind of sad.
And I think Smash 4 was scheduled to be last out of all those events, and Smash 4 finished before Project M.
The Smash 4 situation is kind of hilarious in and of itself, given that it's like, seriously, it's run on completely separate hardware.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just started with that simultaneously.
Yeah, I actually heard very little about Smash 4 the entire time I was sitting in the screen.
Everyone wants to squash it.
Okay.
Honestly,
anyway,
well, that's a separate topic. I'll discuss Smash 4 later if there's interest in that. But
maybe for another podcast, honestly. But
yeah, that counts.
We can rehash that topic. But as you were saying, it's run on completely separate hardware that they could have been running at the same time. And the only issue there would be just people who entered multiple events, like ESAM.
Yeah, but you're always gonna have someone like a Mewtwo King who's like, oh, I'm gonna enter Smash 64, Smash Melee, Smash Brawl, Smash Wii U, Smash Project M, Smash Tekken 5. Like, it's not.
But the problem,
like
Tekken 5. But the problem with having an M2K versus just a normal person who enters a bunch of different events is that M2K goes deep in all of those brackets, and that will really screw up your timing, as opposed to someone who just kind of gets like 2-0'd in one event and then proceeds to go deep in a different one.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so there is that, and you're not always gonna have, and you may have like your M2K, like you had, like I believe ESAM went pretty far in all of his games that he entered.
Right.
So, I mean, there's your M2K for this particular event, but I don't think that. But even in this instance, because they weren't running at the same time, that didn't even really have an effect.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I'd really like to just go back to what Fatality said in his post. The main thing that really drove home for me was it's much better to run a 100 person event that's well run and awesome for everyone than a 200 person event that's terribly run and sucks for everyone. And that's one of the main, I guess, mishaps of this tournament is size was an issue. All pool stuff aside, we'll go back into that because I'm sure we have more to say about just organization of pools in the tournament itself. But size was an issue, and the option of entrant caps on tournaments need to just be explored in the future. Spin Jump brings that up actually in the chat as well, so thank you for chatting that up to us. But I mean, I jotted down a few ideas in terms of just like running a tournament efficiently, which could be considered. I know a few people in North Carolina actually had a system with like a colored card where if it was like green on the TV, you knew that it was a tournament, or you knew that it was friendly, and if it was red, then you knew that it was tournament set, and you shouldn't, instead of just going ahead and going up to the person saying, hey, is this tournament, and they're like, yeah, fuck off, then you know without even having to ask, hey, that's tournament, I shouldn't mess with them right now, or hey, this is friendly, let's get some sets on there, let's get some either friendlies on there, or hey, this is a friendly set, get the hell out so we can make this tournament run faster.
Shit. What did I have here? I guess I basically already addressed that with the yeah, they have a system in place that tells you whether or not something is friendly or tournament.
Mm-hmm.
What was the system, by the way?
Sorry?
What was the system for that they had in place for deciding whether or not a TV was friendly or not friendly or tournament?
Hey, is this tournament?
Okay.
Was that actually the system?
Not literally, but pretty close. Like when it came to my pool, I was like, yeah, I know this is tournament, and I honestly don't care about those other setups because if they were tournament, then
I hate that
good.
So much because then you're just like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
Walter-
this is tournament. You like SD 4 times. You're just like, okay.
Well, like the terrible thing is like even if it's not tournament, all you have to say is yeah, it's tournament, man.
Yeah.
And the TOs aren't like consolidated enough to know the difference, so they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's. I don't know.
I know, Walter. You're a big proponent of the whatever the flashcard
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty fair method.
Flashcards. Let's see, Mid-State Massacre 3 up in North Carolina. They did that, and it was honestly like more work for the TO than was warranting to have it happen. He might have just implemented it poorly, but that was my experience. I was like, so honestly, you're like, he wanted to move the matches on because he was like, all right, I have a free TV. I know I have a free TV, so I can put this setup on that.
Yeah.
But like, what ended up happening was he had like a stack of 30 cards on his desk, and he was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So like, it just didn't work out as well as he would hoped.
Yeah, I think another thing, and this kind of brings the points of just announcing matches in terms of pools and bracket itself, but also the general size of the tournament was because of the actual venue itself was just so separated and just sanctioned off. I think I recall at one point there was just a room that they just designated as like the friendly room. Like you go in there and like play friendlies to your heart content, and there's no tournament happening in here, so just come in and play some friendlies. And there were a few other rooms like that. There were a few rooms that were just like PM, and then a few rooms that were running pools. A big problem with that, though, is there's one mic and there's one PA system, and that's in the main lounge of that venue. So people were getting called for matches, and because they want, for the sake of running the tournament faster, they wanted to make sure everything ran more smoothly. People could get disqualified within minutes if they didn't come to either A, report their match, or B, come to get ready for their match that was just announced. So I think in terms of a solution which could solve that issue specifically for a venue like that that's sanctioned off in that respect is I forget what it was called, but it was the SMS text notification system through Challenge. And again, it's like I said, how everyone has a laptop. Someone can come with their laptop and immediately become staff for TO because you have a laptop, you can set up your challenge. Same thing with cell phones. Pretty much everyone has a cell phone. You come with your cell phone, you you either A, pre-register with your cell phone number in a date prior to the tournament so that you don't have those people lining up out the door like we said, or B, you have them give the number when you register when people are lining up out the door like we said. And then at that point, you can send out a text notification saying you have a match against this person, find them, and then figure out where they're going. Again, to, I guess, tighten that system up a little bit, set up setup numbers for each sort of Melee setup 1, go to this TV. And then you can set that up with the text notifications. You can set that up with the challenge bracket so that it says, hey, this match is going to be taking place on Melee setup 1, Melee setup 2, Melee setup 17, whatever number it is.
And that goes back to me saying all 16 pools should have been noted before starting pools. That way, instead of being, hey, we're going to call out pool 1, or I don't know, that wouldn't be realistic. Pool like 4.
Yeah.
Here are the people's names. And it's like, hey, Stuart, shut up for like 2 seconds so I can go yell outside so everyone can hear you so we don't have to repeat this. What should have happened was step 1, this is pool 1, everybody be quiet. This is pool 2, 3, etc. This is pool 16. Now everyone knows what pool they're in. All they have to be aware of is that, hey, has pool started? And they're like, yeah or no.
And even kind of going in more detail with that, you say, hey, this is pool 1, you announce the people, and this is who you will be reporting to. And you put a face to the name, say, this is our staff member who will be with you throughout your entire pool, and he won't be leaving your group of setups until your pool is complete. I think just having that staff there is what really makes the tournament run a bit more smoothly, and having that staff run in a synergistic manner is what makes the tournament run even better.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. I want to mention this very briefly. There were a fair share of accidents with the tournament. I want to just take some responsibility on myself because we did have a few major issues with the actual stream, and it was put on delay several times for that broadcast. So I apologize deeply for that because there's really no excuse for having those immense breaks between tournament sets, those immense breaks because of technical difficulties. So that's things that need to be tightened up on the streaming end of things. Big gun boys, I see that, DJ. But yeah, for the most part, there were 2 big issues on my end, and I just want to go over them very quickly, and then we can pretty much say how are we going to fix this? Okay, we're just going to make sure it doesn't happen next time, and that's how we're going to fix it. But the 2 main issues that happened at the tournament, for those of you who weren't watching, were the ever-faded Big Guns boys, which was the fact that we...
He's never going to live it down now.
It's going to be my first emote, I'm telling you that. I've already established that it's just going to be a giant fucking gun, like, on the chat screen. But anyway, Big Guns was the first issue. It actually happened in grand finals of Melee doubles. I believe it was Drug Fox and Twitch versus Baka and Nika Boy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was midway through. It was towards the end of set 1, and someone activated the Big Guns glitch because we were running the event, the stream TV on the 20XX hack pack. And disclaimer, the reason why we were running it on that hack pack, and several other streamers actually use this technique as well, is simply because the hack pack allows you to run the game in 480p progressive. So, and that just makes it look a lot nicer. So that's why it probably looked really good in terms of just stream quality plus Melee 2001 TV garbage quality. But that's the sheer reason we were using that hack pack. We ended up switching over to just a normal copy of Melee, which worked fine, albeit it didn't look as nice, but it was good enough for everyone to watch it. So the big issue with that was just people kept activating the Big Guns glitch for whatever reason, because we didn't really know why it was happening. But for whatever reason, it kept happening, and it ended up actually delaying Grand Finals Set 2 by maybe like 20 to 30 minutes, it's totally uncalled for. It's unacceptable on the stream end. It's unacceptable from the player's perspective. And I mean, okay, you can John and say that it could have potentially changed the outcome of that match as well, because you have some people waiting for 30 minutes just to get their second set in of Grand Finals. So it's completely unacceptable on our end, and it's just not right that happened. So again, apologies for that. The second big issue, I guess second/third big issue, were just the mixer we ended up using had a few faulty connections, so it caused the sound to dip in and out for a few sets. I'm sure you guys have already noticed that if you pulled up any of the videos on YouTube. There are a few that have just like a little bit messed up audio. And then the Blackmagic capture card we were running the tournament on crapped out on us for the most part for one set, so we ended up losing one melee singles set off of that. Not extremely bad in terms of what could happen and the destruction that could result from a capture card or your source of recording the video breaking on you. So it wasn't bad, but again, all of these incidents are pretty not okay, and it's stuff that we need to just make sure doesn't happen on my end in the future. So again, this is just making sure that everyone's aware of what went wrong. But I want to actually jump into a little bit. We briefly talked about it, but I want to specifically ask Sai and then also get DJ's opinion on just what kind of mindset you should be in when you're kind of bracing yourself to be a TO. And when you're setting up for a tournament as Grand Scales Olympus, what kind of mindset you should be containing, I guess, prior to the tournament, how you should be scheduling the day of the tournament, and then I guess the aftermath in this case.
I actually want DJ to go first because I probably, being a TO more heavily, as far as I know, probably have a lot more to go on.
Okay.
Yeah, you certainly probably do. Oh man, I mean, what do you expect me to say about this? Honestly,
Yeah, Walter.
All right, so yeah, Walt, Jesus. All right, so TOing mindset. I mean, if you're running any event, honestly, like, I mean, you gotta know that you're trying to get human beings to do what you want in the manner that you want them to do when everyone has their own idea about what they want to do at any given moment. It's like it is herding cats, and it's very difficult to do. So if you don't, like running any event, you have to have a hell of a lot of patience. So and this is not just tournaments. This is any gathering. Like I used to help run like the walk for the breast cancer marathons back in high school, and it's just when you're doing any sort of event where you're going to have a lot of people just coming in and out, and like you gotta be patient. You've gotta be efficient. If anything, like you have to be using your time wisely. I mean, I'm sure if your event's running smoothly, then you have time to lollygag around and have a chat. But if your event is running behind and you're trying to get back on track, and I'm sure and you're doing everything you can to make sure that everything right now as it stands, even though you're behind, is running to the best that it can. And again, it's like herding cats. So, which I'm not sure if you've ever tried to do that.
I can't.
But you can't really herd cats. So,
Okay.
Excuse me.
So as for that, patience, efficiency are actually in all things. Patience and efficiency are good things.
Absolutely. All right, so
Let it rip.
TO mindset. So as a TO, you're not a TO just during that event, unless that's really all you want to do. In which case, you should do yourself a favor and just not do that, honestly. You either need to be a TO or not be a TO. Excuse me. So, can I share my screen on here, actually? That would be massive.
You might be able to.
Share it, do it. All right,
See if
I don't...
it worked. Oh, okay, it did work.
All right, cool.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I guess it's loading right now for me, but you got it. Okay, perfect.
let me know when you guys see things, I guess.
Yeah, we got it.
All right, so being the engineer that I am, I like to do things somewhat efficiently. I used to work at Toys R Us at one point, and if you're an OCD, like things to be organized kind of guy, don't do that unless you're like actively encouraging yourself to commit suicide. So, Here is my seasons bar here. Last season would be here. This is
Okay.
where I keep all my data from old events, which is actually this line here. That looks pretty crazy, I'm sure.
Oh my god.
So what I have done here is before these events even started, I went ahead and labeled the names because I knew I was going to host them each month. And these are the points that each player has received based on those events.
Mm-hmm.
I already knew this was going to happen, so anytime I get a new player, I put them in this far column, and I can keep track of them forever. Then, on to the next column, I've got 10 points from the first tournament because I won the round robin, which I had a massive number of people show up, but I also had a massive number of setups available.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there on, just for the next events, you just add up the points. And then this chunk here...
What are the names up at the top?
From
colored
last semester. Oh, okay. So with the purple, those are that's actually an unrelated project.
Oh, I was talking about like the teal, the salmon, the black, the brown, the blue.
Those are just my little aesthetic applications.
Word.
Like the
I meant like.
Oh.
What is Robin? What is Thrash?
This is
Yeah,
the
I
name
was
of the
gonna ask that
tournament.
too.
So the series that I named it is Smash in the Borough because there's an amusement park near here called Splash in the Borough.
Okay.
I love that place.
So I was just like Smash in the Borough.
Yeah.
Then each of them just has a subtitle. So Robin, Thrasher, Corvus, Meleagris, and Merlin. Those are all bird types since this is the Eagle Nation birds.
Solid.
Nice.
Just tournament names.
I dig it.
All right. So sorry for the interruption, but continue.
It's all good. So all I had to do is put the names over on the left, and then I have their total scores here. Then if you look at this block right here, you'll notice in the function I've got a little sorting thing. So all it has to do is see the points and then add them up over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have instant rankings. Now what that allows me to do as a TO, which I am permanently in that status, is I can look at it and be like, that's seating. I'm good. I don't have to worry about it when the day comes. I can just, boom, throw them in the bracket. Which, speaking of that,
Oh my
when
god.
it comes
your
time for me to
spreadsheets are
host a
insane.
tournament, I have them sign up for that tournament. This is my amateur singles night event from January. I can see who I've got, and then I think underneath the polls, underneath the polls, I check to see if they've already played in my tournaments before. I check their scores and I put them in order. Then I can separate them into these pretty convenient pools.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, this is automated, so this takes up the scores from this row chunk here. All of those are automated. It puts them in order on this column. And then I've actually got it set up to where my seating is automatic. So you see that here in the function box over here, it doesn't say Afro Peach, it says M30, which it pulls directly from right there. I don't have to do that work. I've just identified where it needs to go. I've got pools that go straight into bracket, and I prefer this over challenge because when I do run my brackets for these, I don't start everybody in the winner side. I start some people on the loser side.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it easy for me. I've already done the work to do it, and all I have to do is show up, make sure the people show up, and then make small adjustments that don't take 2 hours, and start the tournament.
Word.
Hmm.
Okay.
And again, I keep track of all of that.
My word. Your
Now-
spreadsheets are beautiful.
Now this is just a system that you yourself you've come up with this over the course of running all these tournaments down in Georgia, right?
Since August, yep.
Wow, since August, that's quite a bit. Now, would you suggest the use of are you going to be putting the system in this guidebook that you're going to be coming
I've
up
been
with?
looking at that for Ascension in particular, due to the fact that Ascension, which is the name that I'm subtitling my summer tournament if I get to run it.
All right.
Excuse me. Fuck. As far as using this system for that tournament, it's not super terrible, except for the fact that I intend to invite people from other regions. Therefore, kind of makes my personal seating not as effective.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do instead is I can easily set up pools since I know that I have a maximum of 96 entrants, which is what I'd be using.
Okay.
96 is an easy number to work with because all I need to do for pools is decide whether I want 8 or 16 pools. I do that first. Then I decide based on the entry fee whether I want top 2 or even just top 1, which doesn't sound good, but I'll move on to that in a moment. Excuse me. Out of pools. So I actually lost track of what I was saying. Give me a second here. I've got 8 or 16 pools. So what I can do there is I know what my setup of information is. I have enough time before June to where I can be like, all right, spin jump. I know you're the TO in Charleston for the most part. I want to know what your seating looks like. I know you have results. Whether you've analyzed them yourself or not is not that important, but I can check and be like, all right, so you've got Turtle Smash 1 through 3. These are all the results. I can take that and just be like, all right, so this is about where these guys should be seated. Separate it, easy. Doesn't take very long.
Mm-hmm.
I can do the same for Columbia. I can do the same for Augusta, which they're a Smash 4 hub right now. I can probably get information from Flow if they were interested in coming down for a Melee tournament if there's nothing else going on, etc., etc., etc. Seeding for pools is honestly not that difficult. All you need to do is get the regions and then separate them.
Right.
Like for mine, I've got like over 24 relatively active players. I just have to separate them like 3 to a pool.
Gotcha. Okay. Would you mind just not sharing the screen now so we can just get DJ back on the screen for one? And then I just wanted to briefly comment on your system because I think your system is just it's immensely beautiful. First off, it's amazing, and I think it's just an incredible way to organize things. But it eliminates the idea of just because I feel like South Carolina has had its history of just organizing events and saying, okay, we're going to get our local really good player to do seeding for this tournament because he knows who the good players are and he knows this, that, and the other. So we're just going to be like, oh, well, this guy said that this person, for instance, okay, Pikmin deserves seed 2 in this pool. Pikmin deserves seed 1 in this pool. Or Gapes deserves seed 2 in this pool because I played with them and they're really good. I think it's just extremely flawed to do it that way. For multiple reasons, it's extremely flawed to do it that way.
It's not objective.
And your system makes it just numerically accurate. And it's just like, okay, you can say that this guy deserves seed 1, but he hasn't placed at anything, like, ever. Or, like, you can say that this guy is, like, easily going to make it out of pools, or this guy is not going to make it out of this pool, but he's placed 2nd or 3rd at every single Georgia local or something like that. And I have, like, empirical data on all of this. So for that, I mean, I commend you for that because it's incredible, and it makes leagues easier to do it. And I really hope you incorporate something on that. Again, shout-outs to Sai and Andre Za, resident of South Carolina Smash. I'm actually going to be trying to help out with you guys as well on this, but working on a TO guidebook of sorts. I know DJ made a reference to Robin's Guide, aka Juggle Guy, and his stuff is really good too, and I think we could try to use some of his material and really just optimize our events in the future. But hopefully, and I'm praying now that you just kind of show us how you work your magic with these sort of things, especially by the time that guidebook gets around to the point of production.
Yeah, I can include stuff if it's of interest, but again, once it comes to larger tournaments, it's a little more difficult. This is perfect for local events because you can keep easy information that you would basically pass on to another TO and be like, hey, this is definite information.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, all right, cool, I don't have to argue about anything with you. Just go sleep now.
And I think for again, this TO mindset general overarching idea, which is, I mean, we're branching off of what happened at Olympus, but this is more so an overarching idea of where we can move on in the future. This TO mindset, if we have a TO for each respective region, at least not even doing it as well as you did, but just gathering that empirical data and having it in some form so that it's accessible to other people, then we can just, all you have to do, again, it's like you said, you just hit up the local TO of the Charleston region, you hit up the local TO of the Columbia area, say, hey, what do you know about these guys? Or, hey, can we collaborate on this data and then put it towards this event? Because I know that you're going to have 10 to 15 players from South Carolina coming here into my Georgia tournament, and I'm pretty certain that there are 20 to 30 North Carolina players coming to this, so let's just collaborate and see what kind of data we have. And all of this goes into organizing a staff as well, because you get all these big brain TOs coming together, and you say, okay, this is the data we have, and these are the people who are confirmed pre-registered already in this tournament. And this tournament is happening in, I don't know, a week, let's say, for instance. So let's have all these TOs sit down, whether it's through Skype, whether it's through just being in person or any sort of medium. Let's have all of them sit down, and we can create a really, really solid seeding system for this tournament to make sure that, one, no one from the same region is playing against each other, and two, you don't have just two heavy hitters playing round one in a pools so that one of them can't even make it out.
Yeah, because I'm sure Pikmin and Pat don't want to play each other in round one of a tournament again for the 5th time.
That's actually why Georgia pre-registered so hard. They were like, we keep going to these other events and we keep getting put against each other in round 1 and 2. So let's pre-register. And they did, so it helped a lot. Stop.
And then Georgia completely, demolished a good number of the standings.
Oh, yeah. And they still weren't happy with all of their seating, but it was pretty okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know you briefly mentioned something along the lines of top 2 get out of pools, top 1. If you want to go more into detail with that, that'd be cool.
I've actually been considering this a lot lately, and I guess I left my book bag downstairs. Alright, so I've actually been looking very hard at brackets lately, and I've been using an average number as far as time for matches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't really need to see that, but it was just for dramatic effect. So using an average match time of, say, 6 minutes and 40 seconds, which is ridiculously long, I've been calculating that a 16-man bracket can take up to fucking 4 hours just for 16 men. But that's if you literally have 6 minute and 40-second matches that all go to 3rd match and best of 5 sets go to 5th match. You want to use the maximum so you can be like, all right, well, that's never going to happen, but at least I can plan this.
Yeah.
So looking at that, then deciding, all right, I'm looking at top 16. If I add top 32, that only adds about, what is it? I think it's 44 minutes to the overall thing. Excuse me. Which is, not that bad. It's 1 hour for top 32. So we're looking at that. We're looking at pools into that bracket. So again, we're looking at 8 or 16 pools. We don't want to do bracket pools because nobody likes those. They want round robin. So if you want to look at it from that Van, where's my bag? You want to look at it from that perspective. At 96 entrants to a tournament, and we're going to say we're looking at 16 pools. 16 divided into 96 gives you 6 entrants per pool.
Okay.
All right, so now this is how you want to look at it as a business TO, okay? 6 entrants means that if you're one of those guys, you fight 5 other people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, depending on how much money you put into this tournament, this can become relatively valuable to that player. So I'm new guy number 3. I put in $5 to go in a tournament, and I hear, hey, we're gonna have round robin pools. Now, since I'm a huge nerd, I'm thinking, hey, that's $1 per match if I lose all of them. That's pretty okay compared to, hey, we're going straight to bracket. Now it's $2.50 for 2 matches. And then I get to do friendlies, which, those are always super serious, and I get valuable experience off of those. Mm-hmm. That's sarcasm, just in case anybody didn't pick that up. So, if you're looking at it from the economic perspective, bracket pools are okay. We're just trying to knock out a tournament, but that appeals more to experienced players.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, if I go to a tournament, I'm gonna be like, what's the structure? Okay, I don't care that much. Just I want to play. Yeah. But I'm looking at it from this other perspective of what am I delivering as a TO because I am providing a service/product.
Right.
So now, do I want to give these guys dollar matches? These are essentially $1 money matches, where if they win, they're allowed to fight much larger
money matches. Yes.
Because once you hit top 16, those $5 money or $1 money matches turn into $35 money matches. Yeah. Whether you want to think about it or not that way, that is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you win, you don't win them all until you hit that 3rd spot.
Right.
Top 3 or top 8, whatever. So, again, this is something you can look at when deciding whether you want to run top 1 gets out, top 2 gets out, bracket pools, etc. Like, how much value do you want to give your customers/players?
Mm-hmm.
So the way I've been looking at my situation lately is I'm a TO in training. I'm going to run these free tournaments. They're all best of 3, even at the losers finals, winners finals, grand finals point, and you all get pools. So all of my players here at Eagle Smash have been receiving pretty good quantity of sets without expanding too much extra time because I've streamlined it. Like, all right, this is your pool. I've got a projector. You don't even have to bother me. Just tell me what the points are.
Yeah.
And that's what they do right now. They like, all right, so who's that guy? I'm just like, boom, that's him. Go. I waste no time. There's not time for friendly setups when I do this, and then we finish the tournament and they can play friendlies. If they have questions, they can ask them, etc. Like they have developed basically histories. It's like, all right, so when I fight this guy, it's good, and even though he's lower on the list, I can't beat that guy. This is what develops these sorts of things when you do this. If you go to a tournament and you only give them 2 serious matches, they only develop into friendlies, which means that your scene, South Carolina, all you ever do are bracket pull. All you ever do is give them double elimination. They lose twice and they're out. They don't have time to think about things seriously. They go into friendlies, they're worn out, even if they would have continued doing the same thing in round robin pulls.
Mm-hmm.
Once that happens, they're done. They are no longer becoming better. They're no longer generating what is weird to consider money for your scene.
Right.
If they can't develop the skill, they aren't worth any more money. South Carolina Melee, or not Melee, South Carolina Smash needs to start developing better tournaments with time so they can get those round robin pulls in there.
Right.
But when you come to a regional, do you want to do round robin pulls at $5 or do you want to bump it up to 10? So this is the new question, or this is the original question. So we're looking at 16 pools of 6 players. And because we know that we're running round robin, it's now feasible to say, hey, this is a $10 tournament now.
Mm-hmm. And I think when you get to the point of it becoming that regional level tournament where you're reaching 100 plus entrants, you have to make that consideration between bracket and round robin, and you've made it perfectly clear that you can run a round robin pool with the time constraints that you have. Mm-hmm. But does that necessarily mean that anyone else can do that? And
technically, yes, you can work it out.
Yeah.
Also, doing some of the math with the that ridiculously large average match time, running round robin pools versus running straight bracket, they're almost the same time if you have the resources for it.
Right.
Now, what happens is, say you can reasonably, at 96 entrants, say you can reasonably provide 24 setups for your event for one game. So I'm going to use Smash 4 for this example since Melee and Project M can interchange.
Okay.
So say you've got 24 Smash 4 setups, and that worked out perfectly fine. What happens with bracket is you start with, at 96 players, you can have 48 sets at once.
Okay.
But that's kind of like a ridiculous number, so you actually go with 32. So you've got, or not 32, 16 sets first, because 64 players will get buys.
Something like that.
That number doesn't sound right, but anyway,
okay.
You start with that, and I think it's like 48, whatever, fuck it. I know I'm stuck on the math, I gotta think about it. 64 or 32. So you start with 32.
Okay.
And those 32 players will fight the next 64 in the waiting area for the round 2. So that first set, you can't use all 24 sets. You're stuck with like 16 sets being used and 8 not being used because you're doing bracket.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do pools, you've got 6-man pools. That means you've got 5 sets per person, but those are all run at the same time.
Right.
You have 5 rounds in your round robin. Therefore, you've got 24 being used here for the first 8 pools. Then the second 8 pools, they use the 24 when they're available. So now you can time it in blocks. You've run 24 setups per round, 5 rounds at approximately 22 minutes each. That gives you 1 hour, and you've knocked out the entirety of half of your pools. And then the next 2 hours, you knock out the second set of your pools. So 4 hours have been burnt on just round robins, and then you can break it down to your top 8, 16, etc.
Gotcha.
It doesn't add that much more time compared to doing straight bracket. When you do those first 2 rounds, those are about 22 minutes each.
Right.
And then depending on like if you can only do one chunk of your rounds and you got to do the other half of the same round, then that's another 22 minutes, give or take. When you look at it that way, it's like why would I ever run bracket over pools unless I don't have that one extra hour or so?
Yeah, and I think that's almost bringing the tournament organizing game down to a science at this point, where and that's what it should be. The thing is, that's what it should be. And
Absolutely.
if we try to reel this back into what exactly happened with Olympus, sure, I guess okay, handwritten pools were a problem, most definitely. Just for the fact that handwritten pools were a problem because so many people were shifting in and out of TOing. I remember even me being the streamer commentator, I stepped in. I said, "Hey, give me a pool. I'll organize it for a few minutes while I have some free time off the mic, and then whoever's back can just step back in for me and do what they got to do." Brackets going into a bracket pool might have been an issue, but again, like you said, it's not really like round robin pools would affect it that much. I think especially when you're in this instance of running between 3 and 7 hours behind. So when you're in that instance, it's like, do you want to give your players the best experience you can because you're behind, or do you want to give your players the same experience you were planning on giving, which may as well be mediocre because you're 7 hours behind your schedule? I'm reading on the little summary here. I saw you wrote games in TO, does one unit take too much time to be effective? Could someone elaborate on that for me, because I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that.
Well, basically that was looking at, hey, we're running a one-day tournament, but we want to run all these Smash games because we all love Smash games, right? All the Smash games equally.
Yeah,
Because hashtag one unit's a thing. It's just not in the way we expected it. This is literally just us talking about about fatalities post again, where it's better to if we need be cut down on the events because some of them just take too much time and we don't have the space nor the resources to do all of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I mean, the way I was looking at it is, excuse me, I can't tell if, not necessarily just Matt, but the Olympus staff decided, hey, we should run these games because, like, everyone universally dislikes Brawl, right? And everyone doesn't hate these, so we'll just run them all.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, man, that pull-up bar does work. Relax. The way I'm looking at it is South Carolina has plenty of players, and, like, if you look at the South Carolina map, by the way, if you're in South Carolina and you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to look that up and get on the map.
Those plugins.
The South Carolina map shows that there are definitely regions where people play games. And if you actually look at some of the clusters, you'll be like, all right, Charleston actually really likes Project M. And then if you look over at Clemson, it's like, Melee is the only thing that exists over here.
Mm-hmm.
Smash 4 is a little more in Columbia and somewhat in Greenville. So if you look at these different regions, you should be like, hey, why don't you guys just run a tournament for that game? And, you know, you like that game, so you're a lot more invested in running a tournament for that game. Like, you're not really excluding other groups because the majority of the people there play that game.
Yeah.
That needs to happen more. And I know it sounds like, well, that's dividing the community. It's like, not really. It's people enjoying what they do.
I see it more so as it's using your resources efficiently and to their full extent. It's like, okay, you have all these people who play Project M, like you said. It's like, okay, hey, can you organize this Melee tournament for me?
It's like, sure, but I'm not invested.
Like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. So I agree with what you have to say there. I think just kind of like gathering from what you already have given to you. That, I mean, it's efficient, it's easy, and it makes everyone feel involved, which is, I think, is the most important thing, because in terms of running a tournament, having your staff be in synergy with each other, having them all be on the same page and know what each of their duties are and know how to fill in for someone else if an issue persists or arises, that's paramount. That's extremely important in order to make sure your tournament runs efficiently and in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have people who are invested in what they're actually organizing, as opposed to someone who's like, oh, I'm only here because the tournament went to shit and they need more people to like help this out, then that's what's going to make it really truly become a great event.
Now, in reference to Olympus and the games that they chose, I mean, they were planning to draw from all across the state, Georgia and North Carolina, where we are encompassing basically those three games that are majorly played right now. I have not seen I have seen very few 64 players in South Carolina, and the only Brawl players to speak of are now playing Smash 4, I think. So with that in mind, I think that the games that were chosen to be played at Olympus were the right games that were chosen to be played. And that's not to say anything
That is a
against
fair
64.
point.
And that's not to say anything against 64 or Brawl, because anyone will know that I fucking love Brawl. So to go back to the point, I think it was a combination of that, and those are the games that everyone plays right now, are Melee, Smash 4, and to an extent PM, even though people are still crying for sounding the death knell for that. So that game roster was the right decision by the Olympus organizers.
So this was really just a matter of poor scheduling.
Yeah, and I mean we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point. That I mean, the tournament had its issues, and we're aware of them. The main point is that we're pointing them out so that not only the people who organize the tournament, but other people who are looking to organize tournaments and other people who would like to make things run more smoothly and efficiently on that end, or the executive end of this thing, just know where these the problems with reference to Olympus were, and then you can kind of generalize that to a more overarching problem. The tournament wasn't organized that well. The venue was too small. This seems to be a recurring theme for things that go on in South Carolina. Again, I mean, it's not to throw anyone under the bus. You have venues like that take place for Smash Carolina and for Extinction and those type of tournaments, and those venues are far too small for what they're trying to do. But they find a way to make it work in a method that's at least semi-reasonable.
I agree with everything you just said. For the most part.
Both of the Smash Carolina 4 and 5 that I had managed to attend, those did have to cancel, or not necessarily cancel, but the last few matches were split. The money was always split for those.
Yeah, and I mean each of these tournaments will run across their fair share of problems, and a lot of it goes back to the venue in which you decide to host this tournament, which is a point that I like to bring up. It's always a good thing to have that backup plan, to have that plan B, C, D, to whatever letter of the alphabet you want to go to, so that you're always prepared. It's even on the side of streamers. You see professional streamers coming in with multiple computers and laptops. So it's like, okay, in case my desktop blows up and my laptop just has a complete core meltdown, at least I still have a MacBook to run this on or something like that. It's something that I brought as a backup plan.
Right.
Plan Bs are always good.
Yeah. Moral of the story, big gun boys. We in there. Awesome emote. I'm so excited for it.
All right.
But I think we have sufficiently hit pretty much everything we want to hit, unless you guys have some lingering topics you want to talk about.
It's a lot of Georgia.
I mean,
a lot of Georgia. Too many cooks.
A lot of Georgia. And to all the TOs, I mean, it's not like anyone has a problem with any of you doing another event, and I'm sure a few people were disappointed with Olympus, and there are a few big mistakes that will hopefully be hashed out next time due to this type of discussion that went on. So I think I've heard talk of another Olympus event happening sometime soon.
Right.
So hopefully these big mistakes will be hashed out and we'll all be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, and the good thing is, with an event like this, I mean, with the people I talked to, it still was an inherently good response from most people. They said, "Oh, I just think it wasn't managed that well." But all in all, it was a good tournament. And
to be fair, you're always gonna have those people that are gonna naysay. Like I'm pretty sure I remember someone in the chat jumping in saying, "I am never going to another event run by these people," and it's like, but it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
So.
And I know they are planning on doing another Olympus iteration come maybe this summer, I believe. So, I mean, be on the lookout for that. I'll hopefully be streaming that again. So, I mean, as I previously said, it's not just issues from the organizer's perspective. There were issues on my end as well that need to be just kind of lined up and shot out of the way. We got to make sure none of that happens the next time. And by the same token, we got to make sure everything is keyword efficient come the next tournament. Because it can be fine if the tournament sucks, the tournament sucks. But if the tournament sucks and doesn't run on time and isn't efficient, that's an entirely different story than if the tournament was shitty, but we finished everything on time and everything ran completely smoothly. Because that just comes down to a matter of opinion at that point.
Yeah. The only other thing I have to think of is if you guys are looking for Winter Smash 2, which I don't think either of you attended the first one, and I forgot I hosted it. So when people were like, man, I really hope Winter Smash comes around again, I was just like, sure, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that was
like,
my first tournament.
They were like, hey, you ran that. And I was like, oh.
Oh shit, you're right.
Shit.
Oh, I did run that, didn't I?
Oh, right.
Professionalism.
Liked it? All right. But yeah,
I moved on,
so that
guys.
is going to be coming in the form of Ascension, given that they give me a summer schedule for the building I want to use.
Right.
And I'll be using a large lecture classroom.
Nice.
I recognize that some issues can arise with the tiered seating arrangement, but I'm going to be working with that, and matches are going to be like friendlies are not going to happen. Almost, I'm going to be like, yo,
Don't.
if you want friendlies, we're going to finish this tournament. Then we think about it. All right.
Hey, they did it. They did it in Arizona at a tournament
Yeah.
at Axel.
They did it in Texas
with the
also,
tiered
didn't
seating
they?
in a lecture hall.
I think
Yeah.
I did it in Texas as well.
I think I actually showed some pictures to some folks. There's a thread. I'll find it in a bit, and I'll just
Solid.
hit you guys on it.
Yeah, you guys can link. You can link me to that, and then I'll be sure to post it in the YouTube link once I upload that. I want to actually comment real quick. Again, I mean, Spin Jump always comes in clutch on these chats for us, but he did write the next one needs to be a 2-day event in a 3,000 plus square foot ballroom. If that means an increased
Thank you for
venue
using my
fee,
math.
so be it. Yeah, using the math, good stuff to you. But yeah, a lot of this run it falls back to those two options we originally talked about towards the beginning of the podcast. It's option A. If the tournament is going to be as big of a scale as it is, look for a bigger venue and keep your tournament timeline to 1 day if you can. And whether keeping it to 1 day means cutting down on your events or cutting down on your entrance, you figure that out, and that's your job since you're the tournament organizer. Or option B, extend your timeline to account for your participants into a 2 or 3 day event and divide your venue space and your events that you're going to be broadcasting and playing in accordingly. So keep the number of events you have, keep the number of entrants, and then just extend your time period so that you're not running on a clock the whole time. So yeah, thank you for that comment, Spin Jump. I appreciate that. But again, I mean, listen to Sai if you want a TO around here because he clearly knows what he's talking about. If you're new to the scene, if you're interested in TOing, I would definitely suggest hitting this man up because he has the knowledge and he knows what he's doing with it. Again, Juggle Guy, really, really fantastic man in the overarching Smash community. So check out his stuff. I'm sure you can find it on Melee and On Me's page and Smashboard, like DJ said previously. So check out that stuff. And I think with that, we're just gonna move on to Ask New Meta. Are we good with this discussion now? I think we've sufficiently.
Yeah, sounds good to
All
me.
right with that.
And we've already got questions.
Yeah.
So,
So Ask New Meta, I mean, for those of you who are new, it's pretty much just a way for you guys to ask questions to us outside of the Twitch chat or inside the Twitch chat towards the end for more, I guess, irrelevant topics and then just stuff that you want to ask that might not be during the time of this podcast. So I know Jake for real has been dying for us to answer this question. So he wants to know, what are Sai's thoughts on fixed camera mode?
I hope that's an adequate response.
Trust me, that's the response I give him at every time he asks me to play it. It's just no.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, so there's your answer.
I also have a question
Okay,
for me.
okay.
What do you think a big gun bracket would look like?
Oh my God! Stop. It would be exactly the same, except the guns would just be big. Like, it'd be the same thing.
What
except
if
the guns
no
would be
have
big.
gun?
No
Don't
gun.
beat gun
No
to have
gun
beat
bracket.
No gun bracket. No gun bracket. Like no spaces allowed.
Oh my gosh, Jake, for real, please just give it a chance. You kill me. You're killing me.
Stop it, Jack.
Yeah, so Big Gun Boys, again, moral of the story, Big Gun Boys, first emote. Get me a sub button so I can fucking make Big Gun Boys a thing, please. But in
Alright.
any case, that's pretty much going to do it. For at hashtag Ask New Meta, tweet at me or the other half of New Meta Entertainment at New Meta Tweets with hashtag Ask New Meta to ask us a question. And that's for times when we're off stream for anything that's going on here. And with anything else you guys have going on, you know where to find New Meta Entertainment. Facebook.com/New Meta Entertainment. Check us out on Facebook, New Meta Tweets, and also just look on to SC Melee, and you'll see a bunch of stuff going on there. But ask us some questions, and that'll pretty much wrap it up for today. Jake, for real, what we mean by big guns is exactly what Cloudful just wrote in the chat. So I'm just gonna let him sit in his frustration, and we're gonna wrap it up now. So
All right. Are you streaming later, by the way? Just so everyone knows.
I think I am. Yeah, I actually noticed on Skype my green screen was kind of like doing that. It's like flashing, and I don't know why it's doing that because I'm not. There's no lights in here.
Flashing? What?
It's like weird. My camera's like messing up or something. I don't know if you
Oh,
guys
okay, I see that.
but
What the hell?
Yep.
yeah. And I don't know because I think that's why my green screen was messing up yesterday. But yeah, I am either someone is going to be streaming on New Meta Entertainment after this within the next maybe like 30 minutes or so. Whether it's me or whether it's Crod. It's either going to be me playing some League of Legends with the new Bard champion because I just got him, or it's going to be Crod playing the new chapter of Resident Evil Revelations. I don't know what the rest of the title is. It's the new Resident Evil game that came out. So someone will be streaming on here. If you guys are interested in checking that out, please feel free to just stay tuned, and we'll be back probably before the hour of 11:30 at that time. I don't think it's going to take that long for me to set up, for me to just give Crod a call and tell him, hey, get on. So stay tuned for that. Again, thank all you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I'm glad you guys got to participate in the ways you did. Holler at big guns. Again, gonna beat that to death until it's still not funny. And we're gonna wrap it up right here. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you, DJ and Sai, for tuning in with me. Again, upset that Cody couldn't join, but we'll probably have him on the next on one of the next few episodes coming in. So stay tuned. I'll be posting for when we go live with our next podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Hydrate.